Hello, everyone. Thank you for choosing us. Today, we have an exclusive interview with the Deputy Ambassador of Israel in Addis Abeba that cover also the Republic of Burundi, Mr. Bar Lavi. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, even at this difficult time for our country.
Yes, tell us. From the 7th October 2023, headlines and breaking news around the world are about the conflict between Israel and Palestine. So can you tell us what really is happening and the current situation?
Yes, so on October 7th, 2023, it was a Saturday morning. In Israel, we woke up. It was the Sabbath day for us on Saturday, and also the holiday of Simchat Torah, the celebration of the Torah, which is the Bible. Every year we have a celebration where we begin the cycle of reading the Bible, the 5 books of Moses, from the beginning. And so people, Israelis were waking up to a holiday, and things were happy, and they were gonna go celebrate. And unfortunately, at 6 in the morning, the Hamas terrorist group from Gaza, they first opened up with a massive rocket barrage. Thousands of rockets were shot into Israel, and at the same time, they attacked from 3 different directions. They came through by land. They broke through the fence, and thousands of terrorists broke into Israel. At the same time, they went on hang gliders over through the air and flew into Israel, and at the same time they even took also special boats and tried to infiltrate Israel by sea. So it was a land, air, and sea infiltration by terrorists. We know of approximately 2,500 Hamas terrorists that infiltrated that morning, and when they came into Israel, they went on a rampage. They conducted the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, which ended in 1945, where 6 million of our people were murdered. So after that, there was never one day in history that so many Jews were murdered, and it's as simple as that. They conducted atrocities where they broke into villages, massacred families, they tortured them, they raped women, they beheaded children. Really horrific things that have left a huge scar on our people. It's not even a scar; it's still an open wound. And in addition to that, they also took. They murdered 1,400 people. That's the current count, and they took over 200. The current count is 203 hostages, and kidnapped them into Gaza, into the terror stronghold of Hamas in Gaza. And so these people are, the people being held there, it's a vast majority are civilians. There's little children, there's babies, there's elderly people, even Holocaust survivors. There are people who are, just, innocent civilians, weak people who are being held in ponds of this horrific terrorist organization. And so this attack on October 7th, it was a surprise attack. It came exactly 50 years, just one day difference from the Yom Kippur War, which happened in 1973 on October 6th, which was a also a surprise attack by a combination of different Arab armies on the holiest day of the Jewish year. It was Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And so this was clearly a well-planned and executed attack meant to surprise the Jewish state and meant to break down our morale and potentially to start a much larger war. We do suspect that they weren't acting alone, Hamas. Hamas is an organization. We now obviously understand that it's, and this is, people have said it, people who were fighting ISIS, the Islamic State, for many years, they said that the things that they've seen that were committed against Israelis in southern Israel by Hamas, in some cases are even worse than what was committed by ISIS. So we know this is a genocidal organization, but we also know that it's been trained and funded by the Iranian regime in Tehran. And it has allies throughout the Middle East region who are all, they all have their eyes on what's going on right now in Israel and Gaza, and they're just waiting for the right moment to also attack Israel. And we also are warning them that if they choose to attack, and if they choose to open up another front in this war, Israel will respond decisively. We have the backing also of the United States, and we will not allow any external actors to open up new fronts in this war again.
Okay. Let me ask you, according to the Bible, the land you are on today is a promise God gave to your ancestors like Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac. So tell us about Palestinians and where they were coming from.
Okay, so thank you for the question. You know, our story as the people of Israel, it really does begin with the Bible, and that's our history. It's the stories we tell to our children. It's the stories we grow up on, and it's really, that's our heritage. And so when you refer to the Bible, really it means it hits a warm spot in all of our hearts, because that is our heritage. Of course, according to the Bible, God promised the children of Abraham, specifically Isaac and his son Jacob, or Israel. He promised him the land of Israel, and you know, in the Bible, it also speaks about another son of Abraham, Ishmael, and we see that, of course, as being the father of the Arab nation, which was also living in the Middle East for thousands of years. If we go to modern times, to specifically what you asked about the Palestinians, you know, I don't want to go into saying if you know, if they didn't exist you know, a few hundred years ago. What I think is important is that currently they define themselves as a people. You know, the Jewish people have had a connection to our homeland in the land of Israel for over 3,000 years. And when the Arab nation expanded outside of southern Arabia in the 7th century CE, about 1,300 years ago, they also came up and settled in other areas of the Middle East, including the land of Israel. And so today's Palestinians may be some of the descendants of those people who came during the Arab conquest, and some of them maybe came at later periods. And in the end, in the last 100 years or so, the idea of a Palestinian nationalism started to develop, and that's when they began calling themselves Palestinians. More even in the 50s and 60s. In the 60s, it really became more of a trend when the battle over the land with Israel was becoming became more of a popular struggle amongst amongst the Arabs who were living next to us, and so that's the history that I can give about the Palestinians. Again, I'm not going to deny that they exist as a people, because they define themselves as a people. So I'm not going to say that they don't, but I will say that the Jewish people and the people of Israel are the indigenous people of the land for thousands of years, and you can find it starting from the Bible, in archaeological evidence. You can find it throughout history and reports that other people's travelers, when they would come and visit, they also wrote about the people of Israel. We have other nations talking about how they conquered the people of Israel and the kingdoms of Israel. So it's well documented that our nation is a constant presence in our homeland.
David Ben-Gurion led a movement that helped a lot to create the state of Israel in 1948 after the Second World War II. Help us to understand what really happened in the history of your people that caused a generation to be born around the world and they come back after centuries.
All right, thank you for the question. This relates to the previous question also, because our people have had a connection with our land for thousands of years. In the Bible, it tells the story of our first of our Genesis as a nation, and then of our the beginning of our sovereignty in the land of Israel, when it was first the judges, then it was King Saul, then King David, who united the whole kingdom with all 12 tribes of Israel, and afterwards King Solomon, who built the Holy Temple. And since those times, 3,000 years ago, we had this presence and the sovereignty on the land. And then history moved, and the Bible also describes our first exile from the land, which was under the Babylonians, when the Babylonians destroyed our temple in 586 BCE, and expelled the people of Israel, the Jewish people, and that's when we started singing the famous psalm, "By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat and wept as we remembered Zion." So this idea back then was already there, that we would come back to Zion. And then we did come back, and the first exile was short. It was about 50 years that most of our people spent in Babylon. And then some of them came back when the king of Persia, Cyrus, gave a famous decree that all the peoples that were conquered are now allowed to go back to their lands of origin, and specifically the people of Judea and the people of Israel. So our people came back, reestablished a presence on the land, rebuilt the Holy Temple, and for a few hundred years lived in that way on the land. We had another kingdom, the Hasmonean kingdom, which emerged for about, was around for about 80 years, around 2,100 years ago. And then we were conquered by the Romans, but the Romans allowed us to stay for the first part until the year of 70 CE, 70 AD, when there was a rebellion by the Jews against the Romans, and the Romans destroyed the Holy Temple, and then they began the second exile, which has been the longest exile from the land. We We were absent, not wholly, because there were always Jews who lived on the land. There were always some communities and some farmers and some people who were living there and continuing. But for the most part, about 2,000 years ago, a large portion of our people began to be exiled, expelled. Some of them were sold as slaves into the Roman Empire. 100 years later, or 70 years later, after the destruction of the temple, there was another revolt called the Bar Kokhba rebellion. And after that, really, the Romans destroyed almost all of the land and left very small pockets of Jews in the land. So from then, the Jews wandered the world. They were in many different nations. We were dispersed as a people, but we were able to keep our identity alive, and our wish and our prayer and our hope that one day we would come back to our homeland. So just about 130 years ago, there was a man named Theodor Herzl, he was a famous Jewish journalist in Europe, and he wrote a book called The Jewish State. And he was the founder of the modern political movement of Zionism, because Zionism existed as a wish, a collective wish of the Jewish people to realize what they'd always known that their destiny would be, which is coming back and reestablishing sovereignty in our land. And then Theodor Herzl in 1896 wrote this book, and in 1897 he established the first Zionist Congress, which brought all the Jews together from around the world to talk about how are we going to recreate our independent state in our homeland. And it took a few decades. It also took, unfortunately, it only succeeded after the horrible Second World War and the Holocaust, where 6 million of our people were murdered. But in the end, in 1948, we were able to realize this dream. David Ben-Gurion was our first prime minister. He was our founding father. And thanks to people like him and people like Herzl and many other people like Chaim Weizmann and Golda Meir and many others, and Jabotinsky, they helped us to revive our national existence 75 years ago.
Today, why Hamas attack Israel, and what is their purpose, and who are behind them?
So Hamas attacked us because in the end they were founded in 1986, 1987, and their purpose from the very beginning, you can read it in their charter, their purpose of existence is to destroy the state of Israel, to destroy our country, and to replace it with an Islamic state, which will become part of an Islamic caliphate when this idea of Islamic states expands. So you can really compare it to a form of ISIS, where their final goal is to create this Islamic state in the Middle East, and their goal all along has been to destroy Israel, and even to murder all of the Jewish people, as their leaders have said throughout the years. So they never stopped this, and anyone who thought that maybe it was possible to contain them or to live alongside them, unfortunately, we were all proven wrong 2 weeks ago when they conducted this horrific attack. And this was, by the way, as Israel had already begun allowing more people from Gaza more innocent people from Gaza to come and work in Israel. There were tens of thousands who came every day to work in different places in Israel. Israel was working on big projects in Gaza to help the civilian population. And unfortunately, Hamas, which has been ruling over the Gaza Strip since 2007, it prefers to advance its genocidal military aims rather than to help the innocent people who are suffering in Gaza.
How can we support you, or Burundians, or other Christian? How really can we support you in these hard times?
So first of all, I'd really like to thank you in Burundi, Burundians. I'd like to thank the Christian world for really being behind Israel in this very difficult time. We know who our friends are, and we know that when you are praying for us, when you are raising your voice and speaking out, and saying publicly that you are thinking of Israel, that you are praying for Israel, that Israel needs to be supported in this difficult time, then that is a very big help to us, because it raises our morale, it raises our spirits, and it lets people around the world know that there are many people who are standing with Israel at this difficult time. I think we've seen, unfortunately, also a mass outpouring of propaganda, and people who are believing the most ridiculous and disgusting things about Israel and about the Jewish people, and I think people who do know the truth and have faith in the right answers, I think that they have a lot of power in their hands. And so I think also one important thing that we'd like to ask of you, of anyone who's listening, is to speak up. To also, we expect our friends, whether it's the people around the world, communities around the world, institutions around the world, and also governments around the world. We expect our friends to condemn the horrific terrorism of Hamas, the genocide aims of Hamas, and to stand with Israel as we protect our citizens and as we fight against this very clear evil which we are faced today.
Time, and we keep having your country in our prayers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate again you having me on this show, and we all, the people of Israel, appreciate your thoughts and your prayers. Thank you.
Thank you, and good day.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you, all of you who have watched us, and we thank you that you have got enough light about the situation in Israel and Palestine. So keep praying for Israel, keep standing with Israel in this hard time. Thank you. Goodbye.